Wholeness and balance, family. One love. What's up? Jesse Tree here. Just to do some more talking with the Prana Sangha, the Prana family. Gonna be joined in a moment by my brother Peri, Plant Master 33. Brother's been on a sort of an accelerated path of physical and spiritual evolution. I can't say spiritual evolution because I didn't know him before meeting him on Instagram maybe about a year ago, but he's got a great heart, a sweet spirit. We've been chatting for months, and we did a live, I don't know, maybe a couple months ago, maybe like 6 weeks or so, before my old account got hacked, and I just really enjoy his company. Hey, brother, there he is. I think you have to request to join, my friend. There you are. Here he comes. We'll wait for everybody to kind of. Hey, Perry.
What's going on?
Not much, brother. One love. How you doing?
Doing well. Yourself?
Doing well, thanks.
Cool.
Giving thanks for another day.
Absolutely. Can you hear me well?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it sounds good.
All right. How's your rising so far?
Oh, it's been good. It's been mellow. I kind of was a little bit active this morning. Usually Sunday is like my day to do nothing.
Yeah.
I'm so active in gardens and trying to build my business and do health coaching that it's important,
Yeah, absolutely. That's
So
cool.
how's your rising?
It's good. I was lazy this rising, and I just kind of I've been up since actually like 2 a.m. So, but I just kind of it's kind of like a meditative state for me. I kind of get a lot of information during that time, and I just been up kind of in my own little inner world, just basking in the information given and the silence and quietness of that night brings, and it was nice and relaxing. So now I'm out in the sun.
That is beautiful.
Yeah,
I love that you actually brought that up because, you know, maybe that'll be part of our conversation today is this whole thing of timing and cycles,
Mm-hmm.
and that actually at like 4 a.m, you're linked up with the galactic center,
Absolutely.
and a lot of creatives find themselves awake at that hour.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I was having some deep, kind of wild dreams right around then.
Yeah.
And woke up and was like, whoa, but
Cool deal, man. Yeah, it's a beautiful time to be up before everybody else is up. So the energy it's like a clean slate because everybody else is asleep. And so all these energies aren't, you know, everywhere, and everybody's just kind of in their meditative state of sleep. And so it's a clear channel. So it's nice to commune with the divine around that time. I love that time. And even I'm a Pisces, so Pisces, that 4 a.m. is the time of that Pisces usually. That's their time according to the clock, the zodiac. So,
my wife is a Pisces.
oh yeah,
So, yeah.
cool.
Yeah. And I used to get up at 4 a.m. I'd wake, with an alarm because I wanted to catch that hour,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd meditate, and then I go back to bed,
Mm-hmm.
But that's something I've noticed on this pranic, Perry and I are going to share a little bit about our experience with this pranic lifestyle and dry fasting and juicing and getting out in the sun and all that, and I remember when I was doing that, just feeling feeling that greater connection to the galactic sun,
Yep.
pretty juicy. I should start doing it again.
Yeah, it's really juicy. The sun gives us energy and the juice. So
Yes, man. Beautiful. What kind of juice you drinking?
This one is orange juice and peach and lime and key lime. I mean lemon and key lime, or pink lemon.
Mm.
It's really good.
That's gorgeous. That's something else I'd love to jive with you about today is just like the creativity and fun and joy in making these juices and raw foods and stuff. Been seeing your videos. I know you're a chef,
Hmm.
like a raw plant-based chef, and yeah, I had a incarnation where earlier, in this path where I was making a lot of raw and wild dishes,
Hmm.
and I absolutely loved it, and really kind of wanted. I still have this in me where I kind of, and it happens with a lot of people on the pranic path, where it's you get prana from creating these beautiful, raw meals for your family and your friends, and you
Hmm.
know I kind of fell out of it. So you give me inspiration, brother.
Cool. I'm glad. Yeah, that's a beautiful thing. I actually looked back on your old page and had seen one post where you were making some cookies, and I was like, hey, he likes to make food too. I like to see what all he does, and so it's good that I get to see some of the things that you like to create, and uh, since you love food as well, and you love to create with food, so um,
Yeah, yeah. My family, started on raw with me when I began the journey, and uh, I was so engrossed in it because it changed my life so much,
mhm.
for the better, that it, became a really passionate, piece, and so now that they're not eating that way anymore, I don't really have that many opportunities to create raw dishes anymore.
Mhm.
But
Yeah, it's exciting. So
yeah,
do you want to delve into your part of the pranic journey and how you got started, and then I'll go after you.
yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, I mean, so for me, the way it went was I was, like dealing with it manifested sort of as like depression and irritation. I was eating organic. I've been to give a background on sort of my life. I've been a permaculture designer and landscaper for about 20 years now, about 21 years now. And so I was hip to, eating clean, eating organic, but it was standard American,
Hmm.
burgers and breakfast burritos and what have you.
Hmm.
I just started to develop like issues, with digestion, and just feeling awful. And so I got interested in raw foods through this book, The Raw Food Family, about the Botenko family. Have you ever heard of them?
Hmm. No, I haven't.
They were great. They're this Russian family, and they had like all kinds of terrible disease, fibromyalgia, and like depression and crazy like digestion problems and all these things. And they went raw, and they had such amazing benefit that they started studying wild foods. That's another big thing for me is like foraging and wild foods and herbs. And so I really took interest in that, and I started. I saw this movie called The Beautiful Truth. This was like back in 2011, or 2010. And it was, talking about the benefits of raw foods and, just the lack of, enzymes and nutrient and water that most people have, you know, going on with their lifestyle. And so I started getting into it at the same time I was like beginning like sun gazing and revivifying my meditation practice because I've been a Buddhist for uh, I don't know, since I was like 18.
Hmm.
I, and even younger, I felt like I was pulled to that, wisdom tradition. Um, so it all just started to sink, and the raw foods just like helped my life so much, improve my energy. I dropped a bunch of weight. I was heavy. My dad, my grandpa was like a 300 pound,
Wow.
5'4" man. Used to make us eat the gristle on our steak because he grew up in the depression or whatever, and so
Yeah.
he'd like kind of make us clear our plates. And my dad was totally steak and potatoes kind of a guy, and um, so yeah, it just like improved my life so much. And every time I'd like try to eat something cooked or like I used to, it would just wreck me.
Mm-hmm.
So I basically had to go raw. I didn't like really feel like I had a choice, except that it was joyful.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I got interested in breatharianism because I don't know, I think it was that movie Eat the Sun. Also, the guy was following with sun gazing practice, HRM,
Mm-hmm.
was talking about the benefits of raw food and grounding and things. And so one thing led to another. And, I was very interested in that lifestyle, but I never thought I'm going to be a breatharian one day. I just thought, how cool. And just over time, like I was drinking smoothies in the morning. After a while, I didn't want that until like 12 or 1, as time went on, it got even later. I started in the day that I, want to take something, and I just take one meal a day. And I didn't realize that all the while the prana was building in my body from the practices of sun gazing, meditation, right diet, and that kind of thing. And so it was interesting the way it was just kind of unfolded, on its own. It's your life. I see this with all of our lives, definitely with my life, where I couldn't have like guessed where my life was going.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But since then, that's been my massive passion, is to share this lifestyle and create these wonderful dishes and work with herbs and teach people about foraging and grounding and connecting with the sun. And and then in like what about 4.5, maybe almost 5 years ago, I got really into the breatharian thing and started my dry fasting journey. And I did it slowly. You went whole hog, brother. Like you went pedal to the metal.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I started with like 1 day of dry fasting, and then 36 hours, and 48 hours, just over time. And I've only done like a 4.5 day dry fast. That's the longest
Okay, cool.
dry fast I've done. But I've now been a liquiditarian for 4.5 years.
Wow.
And it's totally increased my energy, my joy, my clarity of mind, my sense of connection with myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's been a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful journey.
Oh yeah.
And I just love, to connect with brothers like you and others on this path. And, I don't know, something about when I first met you on Instagram, I got this pulse, or like this impression of like, man, that guy's like got that same energy, that love vibration about and stoke that I had when that over time it kind of fades a little bit. So it's like really refreshing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So thanks for joining me and sharing your heart and your experience.
Absolutely. I think it's amazing that you've been, on liquids for 4.5 years, man. I mean, not many can say that or would even attempt to, and what we would call the social norm, they kind of look at us like we're oddities and like we're killing ourselves, and, and it's quite the opposite. And, when before I'd even talked to you, when I started on my journey, it was very refreshing and very encouraging for me to see others like you and Elatome, and I think those were about the only two that I knew of at the moment.
Wow.
And so, especially when I decided I was going to try to, go mostly liquids, I started going back and watching some of your old videos, trying to see, like where you were at, what you were doing, and, because it's good to, even though I have my own path and the way that my body leads me, it's nice to have that reference point to see where somebody was in their stage of this process. And so whenever I found some of the older videos, and I actually think it's a little bit of a blessing that your page got hacked, even though it sucks, but it kind of resorted me going back to your YouTube. And I was trying to search for you because I was like, oh shit, like I don't want to lose communication, with my brother.
Well, I'm so
Jesse.
glad you found me again. That was what hurt most. Seriously, you were like the person that came to mind first.
Yeah.
It's like, oh man, Peri, I gotta stay connected with him.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're fine. Yeah. And it's good because, literally there's not many people. I mean, it's a very low percentage of people that are doing what we're doing as far as within this nation, or what you would call the United States. Many people are told that this is a bad thing, and that you can't go so long without eating, and all the lies they sell us in order to make a profit, because we live in a corporation. So they need us to depend on him and not be sovereign and not to be free. And true sovereignty is the lack of nothing, and the less is more mentality, because everybody talks about being light, and they don't realize that it has to do more than just light. Like that is the sun. Light is something that people think that they turn off and on with a light switch, but that light also has to do with our physical um, mentality and our bodies. You can't be dense and be light at the same time, because it don't work like that. And so I guess in the dispensation we're going into, a lot of people are starting to catch on to this and starting to be self-aware of the things that are subconscious, that are actually controllable if you bring awareness to it. I know science likes to try to tell us that we can't control the involuntary functions of our body, but that only happens when you're unaware of something. If you're in a car and you don't know how the gas pedal works, you're just going to sit there. You're not going to go anywhere. But until
Yeah.
somebody comes up and be like, you see that little pedal right there? If you push that, you can go somewhere. And then it's like that awareness comes in, and it's like, oh, that involuntary, thing became something that I can actually tap into literally and make this vehicle go, and be more fuel efficient. Like you said, happiness, clearer thinking, true sovereignty. Sovereignty is a very broad word that's used, but it's, true freedom is the lack of needing dependency.
Hmm. Yes, they were all sovereigns. Oh, seems like might be having a little signal problem. But we're all sovereigns. We're all kings and cosmic kings and queens, and you know that sovereignty is our heart. I hope that it's coming through right now, because it looks like my brother is kind of frozen at the moment. But so I'll just. Oh yeah, I lost him. He'll come back. Um, that that's also majorly awesome stuff my brother's sharing about. Uh, it's that's the appeal of this lifestyle. Uh, is through gaining mastery of your mind and your heart and your body, through discipline and practice. And to be disciplined is to be a disciple of yourself, so that you can get what you want. So I hope he can come back. I don't know why the signal busted up there, but I'll just keep riffing. I see a lot of good friends showing up. Kazu, my brother, one love. Hope to get Kazu on the live with me sometime soon. Plant-Based Leo, Axel, how you doing, my brethren? Wholeness. Got Self-Mastery Solar Man. I've been seeing you. Divine Timing. Thanks for showing up, my brother. We got various friends I haven't met yet, but look forward to meeting. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for showing up. And hopefully we'll have Peri back with us. But in the meanwhile, I'll just kind of go on about the pranic lifestyle and what it means to me and what this is about. And, I just feel like this is coming in for all of us, actually. I think this is going to be something that grows and grows. I can see from my time early in this, starting with raw foods, I knew no raw foodists, I still know very, very few vegans or raw foodists, but through, social media, I just see it blowing up, and it's gotten bigger and bigger, as has the pranic lifestyle in terms of, things like meditation, fasting, dry fasting, which if you're not familiar with what dry fasting is, that's consuming no food or water. And it's a day of dry fasting is like multiple days of water fasting, where it gets into your interstitial water and wrenches out like the deep waters. So you may have trauma stored in your body. You may have toxicity stored in your body that can never really get released because we never get into this deeper fasting. And as bioaccumulators at the top of the food chain, we accumulate more of this toxicity than any other organism. So, and this accumulation happens through, here comes Peri, through just, the overeating, and our ancient man used to have, hey, there's my brother.
Hey, what's up?
Welcome back.
Yeah, the sun doesn't like phones very well. I didn't think I was going to be able to stay out there very long, but I tried.
Yeah, I prefer it too, but it is a problem when doing lives, I found.
Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah.
But yeah, you keep going on what you were.
Okay, yeah, I'd love for you to share, your journey too, because it's really impressive. It's
cool.
Incredible.
All right.
But I'll finish what I was saying just about the deep toxicity that happens through accumulation. This is something the Buddhists talk about too. This body and this consciousness is an accumulation. It's a pile of past experiences and the things you've ingested and the things, that that you love. We're beings of pleasure and beings of habit. So the things that are pleasurable to us, we habituate to. However, a lot of those pleasures, when through this accumulation, can cause autotoxicity. So this is like cellular toxicity. Even, healthy foods, proteins, fats, oils, and carbohydrates rancify, ferment, and change in the body. And so kind of sort of our karma as beings of, higher consciousness is that this toxicity that we are putting into the world is part of my passion for permaculture, the bioremediation of the world and the bioremediation of human beings. The stuff we put out into the environment, we absorb more than any other organism. So now we have incidence of cancer that's 1 and 2. Here comes Peri again. Sun's getting him. My brother loves to be in the sun, just like me. And all of us, everyone benefits. There he is.
Yeah.
Yay.
Just going with the flow, man. My phone's just not wanting to cooperate or something, so it's all
No
good.
worries.
It's all good.
Divine time. It's all good.
Yeah.
But so yeah, this lifestyle is about cleaning out mental and physical toxicity. And I'd like to turn it over to you now, Peri, and share with people like your beginnings and how this went for you. I know like 3 years ago or something, you were like a barbecue artist.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so some family background, I grew up in a fairly religious family. They still are a very loving family. So, I came through that avenue of this life, which, what I understand is what I picked. And I am grateful that I picked that because that foundation gave me a greater knowledge of experience and what I can put that experience towards the knowledge that I know now that made me an expert through experience. And so I'm very grateful for my parents, my family, and who they were and who they raised me to be. As like all of our parents, they were pretty much indoctrinated by their parents, and so on and so forth, through this construct of basically, to what I'm just going to call it what it is enslavement of body and mind. And so they did the best they could with what they knew and the knowledge that they had. And a lot of times they would use the scripture, because my dad was a pastor. Everybody in my family was either a pastor, minister, or served in the church one way or another. And so, I got to hear a lot of sermons. I was in a lot of, used as a character in a lot of his sermons. He would use family stories and whatnot, but they would always talk about the lack of knowledge and how people were destroyed of the lack of knowledge. But at the time, eyes are kind of shut to what that true knowledge really is, by kind of just having a shallow understanding of what those words in these ancient texts and scriptures actually meant, because of the way it's taught. And I have, I often get very passionate about how I feel about that, but the truth is there if one wants to see it. And so, with the religious thing, food comes into that aspect as well, because, a lot of debates are, well, God said we can eat this, and Jesus ate fish, and this, that, and the other, so it's one of those things where it's just a norm. You know what I'm saying? You ate meat, you came up eating Apple Jacks and my favorite cinnamon toast crunch and things like that, you never thought to, you never thought anybody wanted to uh, maliciously take you out and make you sick, especially at a young age, and neither did the parents, and so they were just doing what everybody else was doing. So I grew up just like everybody else, eating, junk food, and you know, they didn't give me too much candy, but the food we ate was still junk. Like I still loved my tacos. I love meat. That was my thing. But even as a child, all the way up until the age I was probably like 5 or 6 when I went to kindergarten, I remember, and my mom would often tell me, I never ate much. Tons of energy. If I did eat, it was probably once a day, and it was oatmeal. I never really was much on solid foods, and I actually remember that quite well, from being a child, that I never really wanted to eat a whole lot. It always kind of drained me. But of course, your grandma, and you go over their house, and they're like, baby, you need to eat. Like, have you another plate, and pushing fruit in front of you. And next thing you know, you're with the rest of them. And it's all good. I mean, everything has its, you know, what I say is, um, pain leads to happiness. That's how it works. And without pain, without struggle, there's no growth. It's the plight of the phoenix. The self-sacrifice. Whether we know we're self-sacrificing or whether we don't know we're self-sacrificing, at some point, we know that sacrificing leads to renewal. It's regeneration, it's vibration, which is a constant off and on, off and on. And so, as growing up as a child, I ate. You started eating things like, I love chitlins, especially like when I talk about indigenous peoples. We were sold a lot of bull crap about what we should eat and what we shouldn't eat, and a lot of the things that happened in the past were derived from the knowledge that they took from the indigenous and knew what made them thrive and what made them vital, and they twisted it in order to keep them enslaved. And so a lot of that followed along in that specific culture, where we ate a lot of fried chicken. We ate, fried chicken and watermelon, like that.
Right.
Where you got made fun of it, but and everybody loved watermelon, no matter what color they were, and
So
everybody
they're
loved chicken.
cooking.
Yeah, so it's like,
Yeah.
and then you learn that that's a terrible combination at that. Like, you know what I'm saying? So it's like crazy, because they always throw that truth and lie in there, but. I ate chitlins, was one of my favorite when I got up, which is, the pig organs, and so we would eat those, and they were said to be good for you, this and that. And, as I got older, I would see how my family was just sick a lot, and they were getting all kinds of meds. I'd go over to my granny's house, and she pulls out 10 bottles of, medication, filling up her little, Sunday through, you know, Saturday little, pill holder, where she has like all these pills, and some of them didn't even fit in the day, like what's going on, and why are people, yeah. And so as a child, I even noticed that, but I never really questioned it, because it's the norm. We get older, we get sick, you're going to die anyway, so you might as well, live it up and eat whatever you want to. So I kind of had that mentality too, that, hey, live until my grandfather died at 65 of a heart attack. Never showed any symptoms of having any issues or anything like that. And
Mine too.
yeah, and it was 65 is young to be dying of a heart attack,
It is.
and and so as I saw this, I was just like, as I got older, I was like, something's not right, And so being with that, food was a huge thing with my family. We always got together around food. Kitchen was the place to be where we reminisced about the childhood. We got together and, communed and fellowship, which was all great stuff. And there's this food issue that lingered in the background that was like the little monster in the dark that never wanted to show its face. And so with that being said, you know, I worked a job for 19 years in the corporate world, and I didn't like it. I did what I had to do. That's what we're like. Again, you want to fit into society. It's a grave sin to not fit into society, to have a life like everybody else pretty much and doing what everybody else deems socially acceptable. And I always often say social means so shall I do what everybody else is doing, like the so shall. So shall I do what makes me feel not like an outcast. And so even with the job that I had of 19 years, it served its purpose. But, it was a slave job. I was in production working on the line to make these electric motors and drives. And I didn't like it, and I wanted out, and I didn't see a way out because, I had bills and I had a lot of stuff. I had vehicles, I had rent to pay. And so there's this enslavement again, and having more is more, instead of having the mentality we do now. And in order to have more, you got to do more, and you got to be busy and have a busyness, in order to provide, to keep having these luxuries and these things that we think are really good for us. And so I ended up starting, I loved cooking because that's what my family did. My two great grandfathers and my grandfather were both chefs. My great grandfather, Big Rooster, is actually who I named my business after. And he had a pool hall in front of our church. He wasn't too much of a churchgoer, but, I guess he was kind of there in a sense, but he was running the pool hall, gambling, and whatnot. And so that's the thing he did. And so he owned a restaurant as well. And so did my other grandfather. On my mom's side, he owned a restaurant as well, I believe, where I grew up. And so it naturally ran in the family that we enjoyed food and we enjoyed making food and the service behind it. My family is very service oriented. They love serving people. They love having people come over to the house and, make them food. And so it was a natural thing for something for us to do. And so knowing that and growing up in that, essentially I wanted to start my own business. And so around 2012, I got my first ServSafe license and then started selling buffalo wings out of my house. I would get on Facebook and on game days and things like that. I would sell wings. And even before that, I made wings for a friend. It was right before Honey Sriracha came out. And I swear that I had, if it had already been out, it had. I'm not saying I invented it, obviously, but I did it just subconsciously thinking that it was good. And then later found out a friend ate it. He was like, really, these are really good. And then all of a sudden I started hearing more about Honey Sriracha. So it's just kind of weird that happened. You know what I mean? And so that was my first flavor, was Honey Sriracha. And when he told me that he would have paid for them, and I think he actually did throw me some money because, I'm one that just loves to serve. And, if somebody wants to give, it's cool, but they don't have to, I just love to serve.
Yeah.
And so when he said that, something clicked in my head, and I was like, I got to get out of this, this slave job of being a production worker, and hitting these numbers all the time. You're basically just looked at as a number, and they don't care. They don't care if you're sick. They need you to get your butt in there because they need you to make product, and then you need to pay bills, and they make you feel guilty for missing days, and then they penalize you for missing days. And I'm like, I'm tired of this. Like, I need freedom. My very being is about freedom. And so I broke away from that a bit, still worked there, and started a catering business. And through the time that I started to sell wings in my house, it got so popular that my grandmother, she worked for the health department, and one of her friends called me up and was like, all right, you're starting to get a little too big to be doing that out of your kitchen. She was like, you don't want to get in trouble, blah, blah, blah. So I was eventually forced to, go into the business world and paying taxes and all that illegal stuff. And, like it actually took the joy out of doing what I was doing, but you got to do what you got to do. For 4 years, I saved up to get this food truck, and, it was a slow process. And even after the 4 years, I still didn't have enough money to do it. I'd worked my butt off. um, doing working 40 hours a week, sometimes more, sometimes up to 50 or plus hours a week, depending on what the workload was. And also doing these events. Sometimes during the week, I would have to use my vacation from work to do these food events, catering, which led into the food truck, trying to hustle to get my way out of that place. And so manifestation was something I always thought of as like, you pray and, if you ask, you get, with the understanding that there was a man out there in the sky that was going to do it, regardless of whether that is true or not. What I know is that whenever I spoke and I heard that myself, and when I wrote these things down, things really started to manifest in my life as far as me wanting to have a business. And so somebody had saw that they wanted to invest in me. And so during this time, I knew what food truck I wanted, exact one. I knew, like anybody who is obsessed with what they love, I barbecued every day after work. I'd go to Walmart, grab me a brisket. That was my favorite thing, or a pork butt, or what have you. And I was on that grill. I was making something, and I was going to be the best something, whatever I was going to be, that there was in that field, and I believe everybody should think like that. You're going to be the best you're going to be in whatever you do. And so I built up quite the reputation through the catering and selling wings on Facebook. And then a friend of mine basically helped me out. During my manifestations, I had specifically stated that somebody would see what I was doing and provide what I needed that I couldn't get, that as long as I showed that I wanted something and I would work towards something, that so-called, God would provide that. And it happened in the exact way that I wrote it. The dates were off, but I hit those dates, even that I wrote on dates. That's how precise I was in the things I asked. And so the food truck came along, and that friend helped me out tremendously with being able to do that. I actually got a bigger, better trailer than I originally had in mind, but it was still the same trailer. It was the same exact trailer that I wanted, but better. And it was longer, had more firepower, had a huge smoker on it, had a full kitchen on the inside, stainless steel, 3-bay. I mean, it had the works, man. It was like when I got it, it was probably the best thing that ever happened to me, because it was actually, word became not flesh, but material. You know what I mean? Like my words literally, materialized in front of my face. And I was like, oh man, there's something to this. And so during this time, I'm queuing up, becoming, at least famous in my eyes of where I lived, because everybody knew about Big Rooster's Barbecue and Wings. You had the best barbecue sauce out there, had the best brisket. At one time, I went to what was called the Hebrew Israelite what do they call it? It's still a form of religion in my eyes, and I'm not down in anything, but it was, jumping from the fire into the frying pan, as far as I'm concerned, as kind of not having the full knowledge and still being kind of shallow about what things are, what true knowledge was, but it was still on the path to that knowledge. So nothing is futile. It's just where we are in that, on that path. And so again, that still built that foundation of where I am now, right? It's coming slowly from the darkness into light, which both are needed. And so I actually cut out pork because, Leviticus 11 talks about, the clean and unclean animals, and, you shouldn't eat scavengers, you shouldn't eat, unclean animals, but the clean animals were okay. So, when I got the food truck, I was proud about how kosher my meals were, no pork had been, so it was a slow, gradual, well, I can't really say slow. It was actually kind of fast, but kind of in the time, it was very gradual steps up the ladder to where I am now. And so I had the best brisket around, and usually you can't get good brisket unless you're in Texas. And so to have good brisket in Virginia was really nice for a lot of people, and I was good at it. It was a challenge to cook brisket, because brisket's a tough piece of meat to prepare, because it's the chest part of the cow, which is very tough. But if you cook it right, it's very temperamental. It could be the juiciest, best piece of meat there was. And so with this lifestyle of being a barbecue food truck owner, it's only natural that I ate the food. And not only did I eat the food, I didn't eat too much barbecue just because I did it so much. But I loved wings, man. Like wings were my shit, dude. Like hot wings, buffalo wings. Like I would tear them up. Pizza, tacos, another one. And so those things I basically sold on my truck. It was basically a food truck, and I took the meat that I smoked and made pulled beef nachos, and which was a huge seller. The brisket and tacos and things like that, and sandwiches. And so as time went on, I felt terrible. I just felt like that was normal. I was getting older.
Yeah.
Inflammation. I could feel it in my neck. I'd be on the food truck working, and I'd have like neck sweat rolling down, and like this inflammation I could feel in my stomach, and oh, it was just terrible. Was you gonna say something?
No.
Oh,
It's
okay.
just I just can relate
Yeah.
to all of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, I'm like, what in the world? At one time I was just honest with myself, and I was like, I really feel like a big turd right now. Like I felt terrible. My fingers would swell a lot. Like I could tell, when I would wake up in the morning during my fasting, when everybody has to fast at night because they have to go to sleep if they can sleep these days. And my fingers I'd wake up and they'd be normal, but as the day went on and I'd eat, I'd see that they're swelling, and I'm feeling like my body is just one big ball of inflammation. And I started getting some issues with hemorrhoids, which came out of nowhere, which is a problem, which they tell you that, oh, that's normal, that just happens when you get old. I got them, like I'm supposed to make it better, like, oh, okay, well, such and such has got them, and so it must be normal. So I'm just going to ignore it and just keep eating pizza and, taco de lengua, and, all these different, foods and stuff I love. And all the while it's just killing me. And so one day I was at work and I went to the bathroom, and I had noticed that my butt was hurting really bad, and I was like, damn, this this hasn't happened before. And it hurt bad, dude, like really
Yeah.
bad. And at the same time I had to go use it felt like I had to go take a shit. And then so I went to the bathroom, and I went to go use the bathroom, and when I did, oh, the pain was just insane. And when I went to go use the bathroom, it was almost kind of like a loose stool. And then, you know, I was scared to look down, but when I did, it was like a bunch of blood in the toilet. And I was like, oh man, this ain't good. That was like my worst nightmare. Like, I'd often kind of envisioned, maybe, not that it happened to me, but it might catch up with me because, my uncles have in the past died from colitis and things like that, and colon cancer. I had watched my great uncle die of colon cancer, which was my grandfather that died of a heart attack. His brother, and likewise, all of his brothers had died mostly from these things that they really could have prevented. And so it
Reminds
just,
me of that phrase, disease doesn't run in families. It's, family habits.
yep, absolutely.
The families that eat together, it is this connection we
Hmm.
have, food, connects us in community with our family, with
Absolutely.
with our larger community,
Hmm.
and so not to cut you off,
No,
but
you're good.
it's just something that same thing happened to me, where my family was very much into barbecue. My grandpa died young because he didn't, you know, he didn't know. He just thought, it was always barbecue ribs and steak.
Hmm.
You know, you'd have a little bit of corner of like some overly cooked broccoli or some, something like that,
Hmm.
you know, and I just thought veggies were gross.
Yep.
I didn't realize until I got into raw food how delightful it can be, and creating with raw foods.
Hmm.
You can have all kinds of wonderful flavors and, you know, uh, experiences,
Yeah. Possibilities are endless, man.
totally.
And you'd start noticing that really people only eat about like three or four different things every day. 98% of it is meat.
There's a pretty disturbing fact. Less than 10% of Americans get their daily requirement of fruit and veg.
Oh, I believe it. Yeah.
Yeah.
People won't even eat a salad these days. And, they will before their steak comes out, but that's about the extent.
And
that they
it's
go
like
out.
it's like iceberg lettuce too, with like
Yeah.
GMO carrot shavings or something,
Yeah. With doused, drowned in ranch or whatever it
ranch.
be.
Yeah,
So
yeah, of
it's like
course.
not even a salad at that point. So, but,
Yeah,
yeah, so
go on.
ended up
Yeah.
having those issues, scared the crap out of me. And I never liked going to doctors. So I was like, you know, I got to try to figure this out. I don't want to go to the doctor. They're going to try to cut something out of me or put me under the knife or something. And even at it when I feel like I was not as in tune or aware with about how the system works and how the body works and the Western medical system that we come up under. I still didn't like doctors, and I would always do my research before I went. And the doctors would get frustrated with me because they would sometimes say, you need a mailbox here since you know so much. You should work here. And I'm like, well,
Mhm.
somebody's got to make sure that y'all aren't doing something to harm me because I don't know who you are. Like, you don't care about me in the long run. You
It's
know.
an interesting point. Hippocrates, the father of modern medicine. Of course, many of us know the phrase, let food be thy medicine, medicine
Yep.
be thy food. But he had also said, and people don't usually know this one, never use cutting or poison to heal.
Wow, I haven't heard that one either.
And that's, 9/10 of Western medicine, you
Yep,
know.
it is taking something out because you gotta something's not in you that's incomplete. It's lacking something, so you gotta take something out. It's terrible.
Right.
But yeah, I went to the doctor, and of course they wanted to give me a colonoscopy, and I know colonoscopies aren't bad, and I will say that sometimes the medical industry, even with the knowledge, has some of the tools and stuff that we can't afford. So we use, if we're smart, we can use the things they have to figure out how we can fix ourselves without them laying a finger on us, really, and without
Well,
our. Go ahead.
yeah, they're brilliant at triage.
Hmm.
They're brilliant at like understanding this, the mechanisms and the way they all interlock and stuff. But most doctors get a small amount of nutritional, teaching
Hmm.
in their study.
Yeah. And they're not very
Which
good examples themselves. I see
a lot of
some of
them
my
are.
doctors out to eat, smoking, drinking, getting drunk or, what have you. Not saying all doctors, but the majority of them are just as unhealthy as we are,
Hmm.
you know?
Yep, because they're under the same paradigm, the same thinking that you can just eat for your pleasure, and I know that was the thing. Like you had said, my dad, would rather said, I'm getting him into like some of the superfood juices that I share,
Hmm.
and he took one the other day, and he's like, actually, that feels really good. And but my whole upbringing, he's like, I rather have that quality, I rather enjoy that meal than live long, you
Yep.
know. And I'm like, coming into the raw food lifestyle and the pranic lifestyle, is like, why not have both?
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely. It's
yeah.
a beautiful thing, man. Um, the
So
whole
anyway,
journey has just changed my life. Um,
yeah,
I know, I know I'm being a little long with it, but I'm trying to wrap it up a little bit.
it's okay. No, I love to. This is what I want to do this for. Is these lives is because I mean what you're sharing. I'm seeing the comments. A lot of people are saying like, I went through the same thing. Yeah, that was like my dad. You
Mhm.
know, um, I really just want to create space. A container for
Yeah,
people like yourself and myself who've been through this, that we might be able to share something that opens it to the all. So
absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
please carry on, brother.
Cool. And so, yeah, I went through the process of getting a colonoscopy. I ended up having uh, not quite a few, but I had a few, like 4 or 5 precancerous polyps, which they said would have developed into cancer. And they went ahead and cut those polyps out. Didn't mess with anything else, because I was already kind of nervous about them doing it anyway. And I was like, I don't want you doing anything while I'm under that you don't have permission to do. But as far as like the polyps, I knew I would, I would want them out, I guess, at that point because I didn't know any other. But I'm glad they took them out. But even them, when I came to, they were like, everything else looks fine. And the very first thing they said is you're going to have to cut out meat. And I'm like, even the doctor told me like these
Yeah.
these doctors told me, and for me, I was grateful because all 5 of the people that were in the room were women, and I feel way more comfortable with women doctors than I do male doctors, because women are a little, a lot more compassionate than men most of the time, and so even with that, I just always feel a lot comfortable with women, as far as knowing that they might actually care just a little bit about me because they birthed children of their own, or so
The softer, more nurturing vibration is something, it's another part of maybe another future life we can talk about. It's like the future
yeah.
of divine masculinity and femininity.
Yes, we definitely got to do that.
That as men, that's like a way to our higher self, is to embody that more.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
Heck yeah. And so after that, I started taking it more serious and looking into plant-based methods of making food, which would in turn, jeopardize my business. And so, the more I looked into it, I actually quit eating meat cold turkey. It's really easy to quit something when you're about to when you're about to die, but really a lot of Americans don't. They'll be on their deathbed doing the same habit that they did that made them sick. And so I didn't want to be that person, so I wanted immediate change. So I actually stopped eating meat cold turkey. Still ate cheese, still ate eggs, and some processed foods, and I would have smoothies in the rising. And really, once the body started to get some of that nutrients and recognize what it was, slowly, like you said, it started kicking things out fairly quickly for me. And so once I gave it the keys to that it needed to be able to be efficient, it started kicking things out. And so when I ate certain things, it would just there was times I'd eat cooked food. Say, for instance, I started eating raw. When I started my raw journey, I would eat raw in the morning, or I'd fast until noon, or sometimes would eat all raw veggies in the rising. And then at noon, I would eat a salad. And then at evening time, I would eat cooked food, plant-based cooked food. But I started to notice, once my body took to really enjoying the hydration of the raw foods and the nutrients I was getting from it, I would see an influx of inflammation and mucus when I ate the cooked food, and to where I would literally finish a meal and I would almost asphyxiate on the mucus in my throat. Like, I'm like, and I'm like, oh, this has to go. And so people talk about, you don't want to restrict yourself, and, there's no restriction that's needed when you're being gentle with yourself and having grace, but you can't give yourself an excuse to back out, but you also can't give your excuse not to go forward. So I try not to use that word restrictive, because, you don't, of course you don't want to be restrictive, but you want to guide the body to a better way of living, but also not stress or traumatize your body in that you're moving too quickly, or you are so strict on yourself, you then self-sabotage yourself because you have used restriction in order to achieve that.
This is super key point. I want to just break in for a moment. If for those of you who are interested in the breatharian life and going more towards that, because you can hurt yourself, you can pretty significantly if you try to go too quickly to it. You got to give yourself a little bit of this back and forth, as you move toward it. And I really like to think, I'd always tell people, don't think of it as taking away, think of it as adding. Even if like you got to stay with the meat or whatever, like have a big salad with the meat on it, what I mean? Because then at least you got the greens and the fiber and the enzymes and the things to help that come, and your body will start to like it happen for you. And for me, it'd be like, actually, I like it without the meat. It's better. It feels better, and so then it's not like you're taking stuff away. You just feel like, oh, this is what makes, this just feels natural and good to go this way.
It definitely does. And then it becomes, like you said, it's such an easy step at that point, because your body's now telling you what to do, which is the way it's supposed to be. That's how it works. Like when you're in the car and you have a low oil or the engine's messed up, something flashes at you and says, hey, man, you might want to check this out. And the car is really the one that's in control. You're just operating it. You know what I mean?
It's the wisdom of the body. And I remember that when I first moved into raw foods, like for the first time in my life, I could feel the difference between fruits and greens and
Mm-hmm.
nuts and
Yep.
what I was, needing, or like root vegetables. Maybe if I felt a little too high, needed to ground, have some squash or sweet potato or something like that,
Yep.
you know,
Absolutely.
and that felt more like grounding, And if I wanted to get, kind of higher, if I felt too bogged down, some fruits,
Mm-hmm.
some, juicy fruits with enzymes and all that, so. Hey,
Absolutely.
you keep making so many great points. I've been trying to just like.
No, man, you're good, dude. I mean, I'm not even trying to limit this to an hour. It's whatever. We're just going to go with the flow.
I have
Uh,
noticed that for some reason with my account, anyways, the Facebook Live will shut off after an hour. So, but it
okay.
gives me warning. But I'll just let you know, and we can do another if you want.
That's
You
cool.
know,
I have to look at my battery too, so we'll see how that works out. But
yeah.
yeah,
But
we'll just keep going until that happens.
yeah, right on.
But yeah, so you know, being in the barbecue game, having a successful business, well known, da da da. And honestly, I was ready to give it all up when it happened. Like to have so much responsibility already was too much because, again, I was being led to the less is more, and so here I am becoming plant-based more a chef more and more because obviously the way I was preparing food changed drastically. So I'm like, I can still do this and do the barbecue truck and it'll be fine. So that lasted all about probably like 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And I was like, man, this don't feel right. Like this ain't like, why am I giving like, and really a voice inside my head is like, why are you giving people stuff that you wouldn't put in your body? So there was this sense of responsibility that now that I've come to the awareness of what it does to the body, how am I doing this to other people and profiting off of them when that's exactly what this system is designed to do? So I was no better than these governments and these ABC uh, uh, faculties that the government has that control all these things. And I'm like, I'm no better than them if I'm out here doing that. So I had to make it was a tough decision because it's something that I built from the ground up, but it was one of those death and rebirth, instances, which we have many death and rebirths where literally I threw myself on the fire pyre and sacrificed my business and sacrificed who people thought I was, the opinion of people, the opinion of what people wanted me to be in their head, all got shattered. And so there was this rebirth of a new Peri at that time. And I always used to joke around with my dad and tell him that I was the better version Peri of all the Peris I found, because we always joked around, but my grandfather's name was Perry and my father's name was Perry, but I would always call myself Perry 2.0, the newer, better, more efficient version. And honestly, I did believe that because my family, even when in church, would always talk about breaking generational curses and family curses, and they would talk about it, but I never saw anything really changing. I was like, so who's out here doing this generational curse thing? Because everybody's still dying of all this stuff, and I got people in my family and my dad saying, this is why I take this pill so I can douse and eat salt off the table. Like they didn't take table salt. They took table salt so literally that they would shake salt on the table and take their finger and get the salt off the table and eat it that way and not even put it on food. Steady getting sick and complaining about how they feel, and being like, well, that's why I take the medicine. But obviously the medicine wouldn't make you feel any better either because all that's doing is helping you retain all that inflammation, and it's not getting eliminated.
It's suppressing that, like you were saying, the car, like it'll tell you when it's low on oil or whatever. Like
Mm-hmm.
your body, the symptoms you're experiencing are actually a divine guidance,
Mm-hmm.
of what you need. And if you're just taking things to suppress your
Mm-hmm.
symptoms, which is what those pharmaceuticals do,
Yep.
actually it's actually compounding it because it's adding the toxicity of these petroleum derived, chemically synthesized, things, not like the plants that have this synergistic, chemistry
Mm-hmm.
and that really, actually are medicine for us.
Absolutely. It's so important because there's so many aspects of light, and that's what our food needs to have in it as well. It needs to be done with light, and even if people cook their food, I've been um, dabbling in putting my food out in the sun and my juices out in the sun and letting it hang out there for a little bit. But
Perry, it's going to kick us off in 15 seconds.
okay,
Do you want to do another one right now?
yeah, we can get back on.
Okay.
I'll check my
Liquiditarian
battery.
Life
Libertarian
has me
life.
needing to use the bathroom, so I'll get back with you in just 5 minutes
All
or
right,
less.
all right.